What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Forge. A little bit of a different video today. I'm going to show y'all some pretty sweet axes. Now, I'm going to refinish all of these as you should before you put them away. And one of these I'm going to sharpen with something everyone can buy. A simple double-sided whetstone with a coarse and a smooth. It's very simple, relatively cheap. And the other two, I'm going to set up the way I normally set them and put them on my machine, make them perfect the way I like them. Now this big boy, I am going to resurface this handle as well because I had to do a lot of pine tree work with this one. And as you can see, there is tar all over this thing. So we're going to clean all that off and go through the works. I'm going to reset this camera and then I'll show you what these bad boys look like and we'll go from there. All right. Let's start off with some Holtzbrooks. Now when you get these, they come with a pretty decent sheath here. I'm not a big fan of these because if you can see over time, shit like that happens, and that's just a good way to get yourself hurt. So I don't ever rely on these. In the future, I'm going to make my own Kydex ones that I have that pop right on and pop right off real quick, and it takes a good amount of force to get them off. Now, this axe is still relatively sharp. It's not bad by any stretch. A little bit of damage here, nothing crazy. There's no real splitting. As you can see, this is a 2016, I believe, when I purchased this. So it's got a little age, not much. But the handle is worn nicely. It's got a nice color. And I don't really like cleaning this one because I really like the color and the way it's turned out. So we're just going to rehone this edge with the whetstone, as I said. I'll show you how to do that very easily. Just some water and a stone. You can do this anywhere. So this is, I believe this is the 2 pound, hence the 2. The Holtzbrook, made in Sweden. They make some of the best axes in the world, so, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years, so there's really no failing with any of their axes. And they use the French style pins, which I prefer. I use them in all different shapes in all my axes. And hawks. Well, not so much the hawks, but the Warhammers I make. I'll show you later when I make some for y'all when I get some more subscribers. And another Holtzbrook. Again, with these cases, they're a little lackluster. Like that's not going to protect you from much. Maybe initially, but not in the long run. But this is a big boy. This is the Arvika. Oh, I didn't say the name of this one. My apologies. This is the Anby, or Aneby. That's A-N-E-B-Y. And this is a 20-inch handle with the 2 pound head. So that's something you want to take for every camping trip, something like that. It's a good enough size to do most things. I mean, you're not splitting wood for the winter time, obviously, but little bushcrafting stuff, it is absolutely perfect for that. Now, for bigger stuff, this would be the axe. Now this is a 4.5 pound head. This thing is a bad boy. This splits. This will fell a tree every day of the week. This has an amazing edge. I split, I don't know how many rounds of oak with this, and I was still able to shave and cut paper like nothing. This is a beautiful axe. But it's been a few years since I touched it up, so it's a little dull. You might see that little chip right there. It's the slightest bit of roll. It's nothing crazy. I don't even feel it with my nail, but you can slightly see it, I'm sure. But this is a bad boy. Now the handle on it is 32 inches. So that is a full-size axe, essentially. It's a felling axe. It's got a pretty sweet head on it where the bit will flare up and down, not just in one direction like a jersey pattern or something like that. Now this is my favorite axe I've ever owned. Like, this thing is amazing. I've even thrown it. It sticks like a dart. It's impressive. And you can see the Holtz Brook in there. It's got full of crap, but made in Sweden, 4.5 pound, and I'm not too sure what, I think that's a 20. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm sure somebody out there is smarter than me or more informed. Now this handle did not have a branding on it, which is interesting, but I think they did that because when I got this axe, I got it off Amazon for like 200 bucks, which to me is just amazing. You can buy things like this for that price. Yeah, I don't see it on there anymore, so they're probably done doing that, but when you got this, a lot of people were crying that it didn't have a good edge, the finish, you know, the handle was a little rough, blah, blah, blah. Those are all the things the company does so they can get you the product. This is not something a normal homeowner is going to buy, realistically. This is more an actual axe enthusiast, somebody that's really into this. And, you know, somebody that wants a quality tool that they can pass down to the generations, because this will last. This will last for generations if treated well, you know. This steel is the highest quality you can get. The craftsmanship's amazing, but to get it in your hands for under, you know, just almost under 200 bucks, yeah, they're going to make a little bit of a crappy edge. Yeah, the finish is not going to be as best as it can be because they have to cut some corners to get it to you properly, you know, to get it to you quick enough where it's cheap enough. And I don't know about you, but when I get an axe, I put my own edge on it anyway because I'm particular about the things I have and I want them a certain way. So plus you want to add a little bit of your own into these items. It's why else would you have them, right? You want to send it back to the factory every time it gets dull? That's absurd. So this is one of my loves. I'm a big fan of axes, and I have many axes, but these three I'm showing you are my prized possessions, and this is the number one. Now, from Holtz Brook, we're going to go to Grand Forest Brook. Now, they're in the same brook, essentially, which is just essentially a valley, I believe. This is the Grand Forest Brooks. Here's the company. This is their small forest axe. It's you can see the maker's mark here. I believe this is Christian Schnolchen. Forgive me, my Norwegian's not good, or Swedish. But you can see the hallmark, you can see the maker, and you can see on the other side they have their proprietary maker's mark for the manufacturer. So it's a pretty sweet axe, but this axe, I absolutely love the shape of it. That's why I got it. This shape is, to me, the perfect shape of profiles. It's just a look. It's, you know, work-wise, this one works just as well, if sometimes a little better because it's a little heavier of a head. But this one, if you ever swung a hammer, you know a lighter hammer is better typically than a heavier hammer because you can get a faster strike, which means you can add almost the same amount of force as a heavier hammer without less wear to your body. So this one, you can even feel it. It feels lighter. The handle's a little thinner. It's got a little bit more of a pronounced point here, kind of like a boat keel where it'd be cutting the water's edge. You can feel it here more in your hand. I believe it has a better pommel because it actually stops your hand. This one, your hand kind of wants to slide off a little bit because it's like a perfect little edge there. It just kind of wants to slide off. And I've had a couple finger or two come off when using it severely. So this one with the more, see that edge is much different. This one has always stopped my hand. So that is very important, safety reasons, and, you know, just being strong as holding it. You can have a better grip. Now, there was a little bit of fit and finish with a little cold shut around this. I mean, which is not the end of the world by any stretch, but, you know, some people, when they buy these items, they will complain about lots of different things, but everyone's different. Now, full disclosure on this, not this one in particular, but the one before it, and it was from the same maker. When I got it, it was not acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. The bit, when you look down it, was not straight. It was way off to a side. And these little cold shots were way worse. So I sent it back and I bought another one for a more expensive price, with this included actually. And this one came in way better condition, so this is my keeper. Now this steel is a quality steel as well. You see that little chip right there? When they heat treated, it was a little harder. Well, I don't know about a little, but maybe a lot harder than this one, because it does chip a little easier. So I'm way more careful with this. Like, I'm not splitting stuff with knots. I'm not splitting anything, but the bushcraft stuff I do with it in the woods, you know, I'm just a little more careful with it because I really, really like this axe. Everything about it is beautiful. And, you know, when you hold these tools and you use these tools, you get to know them. So you get to know the character, you get to know how they feel. I mean, there's just, it's like your car. You drive your car, you can go in the feel of it, you know when it sounds right, you know when it doesn't work right. And you notice in this one, there is no pin in this. They stopped using pins on their smaller axes a few years back. I don't know if it was to save cost on their end, even though I don't know how much cost that would be, but if you're making thousands of axes, everything adds up. So they stopped using them. I don't know if I like that or dislike that, but it does not really seem to have hindered this. There's no splitting in that wedge really, except that tiny bit right there. Not a big deal. There's no movement. This thing's set beautifully. But again, this one I'm going to touch up on the machine along with the big boy. But this one I'm going to show you how to put, or to, you know, re-hone, resharpen your edge with a whetstone. I don't think I'm going to need the coarse side. I probably only need the smooth side, but maybe I'll dull this up enough where I do need a coarse so you can see the full sharpening. All right, so these are the axes we're working with today. And I don't think I'm going to touch the handle on this one because it looks just fine. There's nothing really on it. So we're going to do the big boy. So I'm going to go through the big boy and the Grand Force Brook first. Doing how I do them. Do the handle, do the blades, you know, touch it up, clean it up, oil them up, make them look how they're supposed to look. And then we'll come back to this one. I can show you how you would do it, or, you know, how I do it, but hopefully you can learn a little bit from how I do it so you can do it. And then I have a little bonus at the end. I'm going to show you some really cool books about blacksmithing and axes. So if you stick to the end, if you're one of those cool people, you'll be able to check it out. All right, let's get into it. All right. Well, the first thing I do before I get to the edge, I like to assess all the beauty marks on it to see what I want and what I don't want. So really, this will disappear with the belt, but all this stuff I want to get off, because if you don't, it's just going to build up over time. So you have two measures of action. You have good old steel wool, and then more, you know, more abrasive and better obviously would be Scotch-Brite. Now I'm going to go with Scotch-Brite this time because I like the finish it leaves. And I'm just going to go around it. Stuff like this, I'm going to do that on a belt so it's much quicker and I don't just gum up the tools and the abrasives I'm using. Everything else I'll just do by hand. So we'll go through this real quick and see how she looks. All right, you can see that is pretty good. It took a lot of the black off, of the blackening of the scale off, but that's okay with me. Just got all those, you know, when you're cutting through wood real fast and sharp, you know, you'll get actually fat chunks embedded into the steel because it's almost impregnated by it. It's crazy. Super simple though, you know. I'll do the same thing with this Holzbrook while we're at it, before we get to the hand sharpening of this edge. all prettied up. I just use that cool scale on there from the factory. I love stuff like that. Nothing but character. No other axe will have the same scale. All right, let's get back to the machine work since we did the nice touch-up work by hand and got all those little ugly marks off. Now with the Arvika, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna use Scotch-Brite because that is the finish I had on it originally anyway. So let's get into it. Oh, and make sure that is close enough where it's not going to touch you, because that, even a dull blade, with enough force, will slice you open. Now I only go enough to get all the really heavy blemishes, any surface rust, you know, a little bit of staining. I don't care about that crap. That gives it character. So just give it a nice, smooth surfacing, just so when you store it, you don't have to worry about when you take it out later, if there's any rust pitting or anything that will damage it over the years, because you don't want to do that. You want this to last lifetimes, right? All right, now we can put an edge on it and come back for the handle. All right, now when using this machine, I don't know if y'all are gonna have anything like this, but there's lots of variations of these machines, smaller ones, bigger ones, obviously. Super cheap, super expensive. Just a belt sander, essentially, so. But you can see how I took the platen out of here, just a flat backing so it can take weight. So I can add flex to this. That's important because an axe edge, when you look at it, typically before it gets sharp, there's about 1/8 of an inch, and then it tapers down from there. A little bit more on this one because it's a longer taper. See how far back it is? But either way, you want to have that beveled edge. That's what axes have. They have a beveled edge. See that? It's like a bullet's edge. That's very important because these are taking such force that you don't want to be chipping off this material. Because if it was like a knife edge where it was a straight grind, or even a straight razor, where it's a convex, it actually curves in the opposite of this, that would chip right away. It's just not meant for it. It's meant for shaving your face. So it's something very light, but super, super sharp. So when we get here, when I add pressure, it's gonna form fit to that bevel that's in there. You know, it'll with more force, it would make a slight different bevel, but we're going light and steady with this, and then we'll slowly see that little chip up there disappear. And there might be a little one right there that was there. But we'll see that slowly disappear as it becomes a nice grind and polish, and then we'll start to see when you get like the knife situation where you have one side worked all the way to a finish, you will see the metal hanging over. The burr. I'll show you exactly what that is when it happens. So let's get into it. Now you can see here, See that burr right there? See how it disappeared? And it shows up again. Disappears, it shows up again. That's how you know, at least right there, that side's finished. On that side. Because it was pushed up on this side. Now, the burr's probably going to break off if I keep doing this, but that is super sharp right there. Now we're going to want that for the whole thing. I don't know if you can see that, but we got a pretty fine burr the whole way on that edge. I know it's super tough to see, but you can feel it. Remember that fingernail trick I told you with the knife? It's the same thing with the axe. So this bad boy, oh, you can see a little better there now. You see that little burr? It's right there, all the way down. Touch it up a little more and then we can strop it, but I'll do the Arvika before that. Alright, it's pretty darn sharp. We'll get the big boy out, do that, and then we'll strop them both. Alright, let's get the big boy worked up. Again, this is probably the dollar of all the edges, so we need a little more love with it. I didn't say this, but this is a 220 belt and it's used, so it's probably like a 400 by now. It could be a little more aggressive, but I really don't think it needs it. Wrong, it needs it. Let's swap out belts real quick. You see that now? See that burr everywhere? So it's up, it's down, it's up. See, that's what you want to see. That's how you know when that burr gets knocked off, this thing's going to be shaving sharp. Now, let's get to stropping. All right, this is what really gets your edge proper. Now, this is a leather belt. Remember, like the stropping block I showed you in the knife video? And we're using the chrome compound on this. So it's again, it's a slight abrasive, really brings it to a polish and knocks off that fine metal. Let's see if it's sharp enough. It's pretty clean cut. See if it shaves. Oh, definitely shaves. You don't need more than that from an axe. You're not doing surgery with it. Well, you're doing tree surgery. So that is how you touch up an axe head, at least how I do it. I'm sure you'll learn as you go and find your own ways that work better than mine, I'm sure. All right, let's get to the handles. Now let's see how sharp the small force axe is. Woo. Yeah, that's wicked sharp. And of course, if I have any hair left, let's see if it shaves. Oh yeah, that shaves. Again, you do not need to sharpen an axe that sharp. Realistically, the sharper the edge, the more it'll chip. As long as you keep that bullet edge, it will be as strong as it can be, or whatever the steel is. All right, let's get back to that handle. I just wanted to show you this bad boy. Now, for all this tar everywhere, best thing to do is to not try and sand that, because you're just going to sand a lot of it into the grain of the wood. So what you should really be doing is get some acetone, mineral spirits. I wouldn't use lacquer thinner because it's more oily and it's going to leach into the wood. So we're going to use some acetone because it'll leave a clean surface. It'll knock and destroy this real quick. So let's do that now. All right. Now if you're going to use acetone or anything like it, please put some damn gloves on. I don't always do this, so I am not the role model here, but you're going to want to put some on. Because if you don't, over the years, you're going to regret it. See how quick that comes off? I'm not damaging the wood or doing anything silly. It is going to dry the wood a little bit, but we're going to treat that later. Look at that. Look at all that there. A few passes. Just knocks it right off. No more freaking tar on my handle. It's all over my chainsaw too. Let me get that crap off. Quick and easy. And we can get back to having a nice looking handle. Haft. All right. Go easy that was. Oh, missed a spot. Almost new looking. All right. Now we can sand her down a little bit to get her going working right. So I'm just going to use a little bit of 220. Don't need the whole sheet. Matter of fact, just using my scalpel. There you go. This is just a little bit of touch-up. We're not going crazy here. I just want to try and get rid of little blemishes like that. Like that. Just knock them down a little bit. Go through the whole handle. Let me set up the camera so you can see a little better. essentially it. Now I'll take that same, don't ever throw away your old t-shirts. That's all this is an old t-shirt. AKA a free rag, you know? Wipe off all that excess with your acetone laden rag. And then we'll get to the final step of linseed oil. If you do this every year, as you should, to care for your items, they will look beautiful forever. And that little blemish I wanted to get out, it ain't coming out unless I go more aggressive, which I feel I don't need to. So it's just gonna be a beauty mark. Beauty marks just fine with me. Now, I'll take my little tray of goo, a little bit of not acetone, linseed oil. Now I'll take just a little bit in my hand. You can use a rag, it doesn't matter. I like to use my hand because I can wrap it around it easier. Just coat her up. Take this off real quick. Clean off this blade a little bit. You just kind of work it all in there. And just good coating. Now, another trick, if your head is slightly loose, fill a whole thing with linseed oil and soak that bad boy for a day or two. It won't be loose after that. And if it is, it's a more severe problem than what you thought. So this is your best way of keeping your items nice and clean. Respecting the tool that's always going to be there to help you in return. Coat in that end grain, it's super important. That will dry over time. And then I use the excess linseed oil to give a nice coating to the axe head. Thin, you don't want it thick because then it gets kind of gummy and the axe technically will, wedge into the wood rather than split it easier. I mean, minute amounts, but whatever. Just a nice coating to keep the rust off it. Because again, I live in rust country, so you want things looking pretty. All right. Super simple. Got a little bit of compound on that. Take that off. And a little more linseed oil. Sometimes you don't get all the compound off your bit and it sticks on there, but again, wipe off the excess. You don't need to go crazy, and a nice another pass. So this axe is essentially done. It's looking pretty. Fixed the pole of the axe. Got rid of all the blemishes on it. Now it's smooth and rust free. That's the tool side, even though they say not to use it, but who the hell listens to that? Now coat your end grain. You can see it already soaking up a little bit. Not a lot, it's not too dry. Just a little, soaking it up. So that is how I refinish my axes. Typically do it once a year before I put it away, but I am not perfect. Unlike everyone else, I do get lazy. And sometimes I walk out and go, whoa, what did I do? Then I have to do a little more work than I wanted, but these are the things you learn. You sacrifice now for a little bit of pleasure later. And if you do pleasure first, aka being lazy, you will sacrifice will show up later with more work. Remember that. It's always good to sacrifice first because you will get your pleasure later. So this one is done. I'm gonna wrap it up. Again, I'm not going to do the handle on the little Grand Force Brook because it's, I love the color of it. I don't want that to go away. I like that dark looking handle. So typically I'll just put a little more linseed oil right on top of it. Dirt and all, doesn't really matter, at least not to me. Just give it a nice coating so these handles are never getting dry, because when they do dry out too much, they will split, typically from this end up. Because obviously there's been some work done with the drilling holes, and a lot of the shock goes right down to the tip. You know, I mean, it ends up in your hand a lot of the time, but it still ends there. So it will split here first and work its way up. I've seen them split right in half, so, you know, it's either a defect in the wood or manufacturer defect. There's a lot of reasons for it, but again, just be smart with it. Coat your steels. Look how beautiful that looks. Now I can put this away for years and I'll pull it out and it'll look just the same, as long as it's inside, obviously. All right, everyone, so now I'm going to show you a way that pretty much everyone can sharpen with whetstone. I am by far not an expert in sharpening with whetstone, so just take it from my perspective and you can go from there. There's plenty of other people out there that can show you better ways, but we're going to go through it together, see how it gets us, and go from there, all right? Let's get to the next axe. All right, here's the next little project. So this bit has a little sharpness to it, like that's a legit edge, but again, we're going to use a whetstone. We're not going to need the coarse side. That's a bit aggressive for our needs, and you can see how thick they give you the smooth surface compared to the rough, because you know you're not going to need this a lot, but you'll need this a lot more. So axe, whetstone, and some water. Now you'll just see me off screen a little bit dip periodically in the water, and I'll probably reset this camera a little bit, probably to be about right here, up a little bit. There you go. So I can work without being in the way. Now again, you can work in the field, you're gonna work off probably your knee away from you, not into your groin area, obviously. So we're just gonna wet the stone, and we're gonna do simple circular motions. Now, when you do this, you don't wanna go too far over, because you're gonna start grinding your edge. You kinda wanna stay here in this area, right about here. So you're just gonna slowly just bring it around and bring it around. And you can see already where it is scraping. So we'll go through that whole motion on one side and see where we're at. That feels like one side's pretty well done. And you can see all the abrasion marks on it now. Obviously things by hand do not look nowhere near as nice as the machines, but that's handmade, baby. And give it a little bit more just to make sure. Pop it over and do the other one. You can see a little bit of a burr already. You see that? Pretty cool. Quick, easy, cheap. Okay, I don't think it needs more than that. I'm gonna go strop it real quick, and we're gonna see where this edge is at. All right, it's a few passes on the stropping block. Axes are a little funky with trying to cut paper, but You can see it's sharp. It's got a hell of a beveled edge. See if I got any more hair to shave. Yep, it's sharp. So that's how you can field sharpen an axe real quick. And now, since you stuck around, let's check out some cool bonus books. All right, bonus material. Thanks for sticking around. Let's check out some cool books. Now the first book is the Axe book. Originally this book came out much earlier and it had a different title. I wish I remembered what it was called, but it's in here somewhere. You can find this on Amazon, all those places you can find books. Expect it to be delivered damaged if Amazon delivers it, so send it back, get another one. But this book is amazing. Illustrated by Lawrence Whipple. Interesting name. Anyway, this book's amazing. Now, I got this book many years ago just because it looked real cool, and I am very, very into axes. It's one of the only tools that can build a nation and bring one down at the same time. Good luck building a house with a sword, but an axe, no problem. Now, what's cool about this book, it basically has everything. Everything. If you need to learn how to split wood, stack wood, sharpen an axe, saws, I mean, it covers all the bases. So if you're into this stuff, this is a book to get because it covers a lot. Again, this is originally, I believe, a turn of the century book. This is just a reprint. And it was under a different title back then, so I don't really remember what it was called. And again, it's in here. If you get the newer copy, you'll get the history of the old copy. So maybe it's right there. Anyway, The Tool Necessity. This book is fantastic. It gives you all these cool old hand-drawn diagrams, the shape of axes, how they should be, especially when they're made. Like, it'll tell you if it's a crappy axe or not. It gives you a lot in this book. It's pretty cool. It's not a huge book, you know. Up to the glossary, it's only 124 pages, but within it, I mean, these are deep pages. They have a lot. You know, it tells you grain orientation, how to cut limbs properly. You know, it's so useful. All these old techniques that they just, I mean, if you follow, you know, real fellers and guys who work with trees all day long, obviously you'll learn these things, but this is a lot of the information you just can't find anymore unless you're going to older books or older people. You know, hand filing crosscut saws, like, where the hell are you going to learn that unless you take a class on it, right? I mean, you have to read regardless and work your way up from there because you're going to mess up stuff just learning, but that's the part of it. But it's got beautiful old drawn illustrations, all in new print, all about saws and axes and how to hew whole trees up. Look at that. See how he's got hewing the side of it to flatten it out? And all those cuts are to make those chunks come out quicker and easier. It's just so cool. How to set a new handle, or haft in an axe, hanging an axe. A whole thing on how to hang an axe. I'll do a video on that later for you guys as well. But this shows you how to do it. And you can read on how to do it as well. It's just a great, great little book. I wish I had a hardback of this because I disdain paperbacks, but it is what it is. Look at that, sharpening axes. He's just using a hand file too. Hand file for his rough, and then a whetstone. You know? It's got everything in here. Shows you the degrees and how they should be. Even a little gauge to show you if you messed up or not. Super simple. All these old school techniques are the best techniques. Even in automotive stuff. All the old automotive books from turn of the century. If you get down the basics, you can figure out all the new stuff easily. Well, minus all the computer garbage these days, but these books to me are invaluable. Look at all this stacking, properly stacking and storaging. Come on, this is amazing. This This is an amazing book. I love this book. All these old techniques. Look at that. All this, old springs to help you bring trees down. It's truly worth it. It's a great book. I can highly recommend this book. The Axe Book. The Lore and Science of the Woodcutter. D. Cook. Pretty sweet. Next book is Mousehole Forge. This is the book, and this is a very important name to modern blacksmithing. You'll see later in the next book. It's probably one of the most amazing books I've ever purchased on blacksmithing in general, but we'll get to that. But this book is amazing as well because, like I told you, I have a mouse hole anvil. So this book, look at that, autographed. How cool is that? This beautiful ironwork. This shows the actual factory, the forge, the mouse hole forge. And that's their logo. This is part of their logo. Now this book helped me date my anvil. Now you've seen my anvil if you watched my shop tour video. A little history of the people and the family, location, Sheffield, England. Sheffield. There's your mouse hole forge. Every forge is going to be right next to a stream or river. You know that because how else are they going to spin those wheels to get all their machinery working, power hammers? It was all done by water. It's pretty amazing. Humans are amazing. But, I mean, it gives you a whole history, a whole breakdown. It's an amazing book. He really did his homework with this book. And I'm grateful to have it because, like I said, I have a mouse hole anvil. So he goes through it pretty thoroughly. I don't want to give away the whole book for everyone, but, there's a lot of notes. A lot of old, beautiful prints in here. Stuff you'll never see again. All this stuff, unless somebody has it in an attic somewhere, not being eaten by mice, it's gone. This is how you save things. You reprint them. Get them back out to new generations so they can hopefully learn. All these old tooling, post leg vise, anvils, saw making anvils. It's beautiful. Beautiful old advertisements. Really nice stuff you'll just never see. Never see this stuff. Like all this stuff is all in ruin now, The mouse hole forge is not what it used to be, obviously. Look at this. It's a shame. It's how everything ends up. Nature wins in the end. It always takes everything back. But it is a beautiful, beautiful piece of history that he put together for us. And look at this. This is the Maker Mark setup in the years. Now, mine was from around the 1830s. So my markings are within this window. I have a pretty old anvil as far as their anvils go. Like I don't have the mouse. I don't have all this fancy stuff. Mine's in this window. I have the M, the H, the Heritage, and you can just see the M and the S and the hole on the end. And these weights, these are the weight marks, they're completely gone. You can't even notice them anymore. I know what it weighs because I weighed it, so it's around 100 pounds. I don't have a big anvil. But this was an invaluable tool for me. When I got the anvil in Annville, Pennsylvania, which is hilarious, the guy knew what it was. He just knew how old it was. So I knew where to start from, which was very cool of him to have that information and give it to me. So from there, I did my homework with this book and Google and all that crap. Here's a beautiful picture of these dudes kicking ass. They're probably not really working there, but looks cool. Or else would you be so far away swinging? But it's pretty sweet, These dudes, they all died young and they all worked their asses off. So I just love the fact that you can even see them. I really do. It's amazing. Amazing old pictures. Love it. I absolutely love it. Look at a big anvil right there too. It's easily a 400-pound anvil. Nice old pictures of the anvils. It really goes into it. So you guys can pick this up too if you want, if you're interested. and go down that, nice, beautiful story of Mouse Hole Forge. Now the next book is probably considered a holy grail of blacksmithing and anvils in America. And it is a beautiful book. It's a really nice book. That's why I put this down, because I'm not putting these books on my damn table. Anvils in America. It's a beautiful, actual hardcover book. And I bought this, again, all this stuff's on Amazon, nothing special, but it also came signed by the man. 2018, how cool is that? I wasn't expecting that. Apparently he sells his books through Amazon as well, like a lot of people do. But this book is amazing, because what little bit I know about the man is he collected most of these anvils. He had hundreds of anvils before he sold that collection. And that's how he was able to do all this research. Now, this book is packed full of information about everything blacksmith related. Not just anvils, there's tooling, there's die work, there's all kinds in this. All these old advertisements you're never going to see again, ever. How he got all this is beyond me. He must have had a lot of help and put a lot of hours in, and I thank him so much for that, because how else would this information be saved for generations to come, right? This man really did a service to us all into this craft. This book is absolutely invaluable, in my opinion, and worth every penny. I mean, these old diagrams and patents, and it's beautiful. It's got all the companies in there too. Well, not all, but as many as he can find, I'm sure. It's just an amazing amalgamation of work. These old pictures, you just don't see stuff like this. Look at that beautiful display of all that hard work. See if I can get that closer so you can see that. Look at that. Just look at that. Would you just look at it? That eagle on top, come on. That's just killer. Like, how many hours of work are just in those products sitting on display just to show everyone the craftsmanship of Fisher and Norris at that time? It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. This stuff just gets me going, man. I love it so much. These beautiful animals. I mean, he has it all sectioned out too. It goes from company to company. He's really put the work in here. Look at that. 675 pound saw anvil. That's amazing. That thing is so heavy. I mean, there's heavier anvils, but come on now. That's very rare to find an anvil over 600 pounds. Even shows a little advertisement of salesman samples, I believe they call them. Cast anvils. It's just amazing. I love these old advertisements. They're just so cool. How simple they were. Still draws your attention looking at it now. Order now, 10-pound anvil. Now it's like a jeweler's anvil. Or if you just need to do little eyelets or rivets or something. American cast anvils. It's all set out in here. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, it's called Anvils in America because a lot of these companies were American, because, when the Industrial Revolution kicked off, America was leading the way, hands down. I mean, the whole world was kicking butt, but America was leaps and bounds ahead of a lot. So we were really producing a lot in this country. So my anvil is not American, but it doesn't really matter. It's still a beautiful piece of work. Look at these. Look at that. A bridge anvil. Isn't that amazing? Like, every anvil has a use. Every one. A rare cast iron railroad anvil. It's crazy. They just look so like, what the hell? What? But they all have a use. They're all made for a specific job. They all have a task. Obviously, you can do lots of different things with them, but back then, a tool was made to do a job, and it did it perfectly. It's not like today where everyone's trying to get 5 jobs out of one tool. but all you're going to do is get half-assed work out of, 5 different ways. It's always way better to have one tool that's meant for it, because it'll do it perfectly. There's no half-assing it. And these men back then, they knew what real work was. They didn't really care if they were sick, they went to work. They had something broken, they went to work. They could still make a fist and swing a hammer, they went to work. They were not crying for mental health days. They had a lot less crap to deal with, but they also had a lot more hardships than we did. So they were just tougher people in general. And I admire that. I really do. Look at that Trenton, pretty sweet. Solid wrought iron. That must have been cool. Because it's going to be wrought, and then it's going to have a nice hardened plate on top, forge welded on. Indian Chief, those are pretty cool too. They had some really cool designs back in the days. I saw a couple when I was looking for my post-leg vise, but they weren't as cool as mine, because they were like 40 pounds or something. Mine's 100 pounds. That's a big difference. Pretty cool, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this. Just a simple walk down memory lane, thanks to Richard Postman, and of course the other axe book by D. Cook. Well, if you guys are interested, these books are, I believe, still more than available, so by all means go pick them up and save them, hand them down to your kids, and share them with your family, and sit by a fireside and just soak up the old times. These things are invaluable. They're beautiful. They got information you'll never find online. So I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you for coming along. I hope you learned something. Appreciate everyone watching. Like, subscribe, all that cool stuff, and have a great day.